Picture this for a second. You sent her a message 3 days ago and she hasn't responded. You see she's been online, posting stories, liking other people's photos, but your message sits there, unread or worse, read and ignored. That knot in your stomach tightens, doesn't it? Your mind races through 1,000 scenarios. Maybe she found someone better. Maybe you said something wrong. Maybe you're just not enough. Stop right there. What if I told you that her ignoring you could be the best thing that ever happened to your dating life? What if I told you that right now, in this very moment of silence, you hold more power than you realize, and that by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly how to flip the script so profoundly that she'll find herself drawn back to you without even understanding why. Listen carefully, because what I'm about to share with you goes against everything society has taught you about pursuing women. We've been conditioned to believe that when someone pulls away, we should chase harder, prove our worth more desperately, shower them with attention until they finally see how much we care. But here's the brutal truth that most men will never understand. The moment you chase someone who's pulling away, you've already lost. Not just the girl, but something far more valuable, your self-respect and your magnetic power as a man. You see, when a woman ignores you, she's unconsciously testing something fundamental about your character. She's not necessarily doing this maliciously or even consciously. It's a deeply ingrained psychological mechanism that Robert Greene talks about in The Art of Seduction. Women and people in general are attracted to value, and value is largely determined by scarcity and independence. The moment you demonstrate that her absence destroys your peace, that her attention is necessary for your happiness, you've communicated that you're not the prize, she is. And nobody, absolutely nobody, is attracted to someone who pedestalizes them from a position of weakness. Think about the last time you wanted something desperately. Maybe it was a job, a car, an opportunity that seemed just out of reach. The more desperate you became, the more it seemed to slip through your fingers. This isn't coincidence. It's a fundamental law of human psychology. Desperation repels, abundance attracts. When she ignores you, she's inadvertently giving you the greatest gift possible, the opportunity to demonstrate your abundance mentality, your emotional sovereignty, your unshakable frame as a man who doesn't crumble when the winds of female attention shift. Now, I want you to understand something crucial here. This isn't about playing games or being manipulative. This is about understanding the deep psychological dynamics at play and aligning yourself with them rather than fighting against them. When you understand these principles, you stop being a victim of circumstances and start being the architect of your own romantic destiny. You see, most men operate from a scarcity mindset. They meet one attractive woman, and suddenly, she becomes their entire world. Every text becomes a matter of life and death. Every delayed response becomes a personal rejection. This is exactly what Corey Wayne discusses in his book, How to Be a 3% Man. He explains that 97% of men have no idea what they're doing when it comes to attracting women, and the primary reason is that they operate from fear rather than abundance. The first thing you need to understand when she ignores you is that her silence is information. It's telling you something important about where you stand in her priority hierarchy at this moment. And here's where most men make their fatal mistake. They interpret this information through the lens of their ego. They think, she's ignoring me? How dare she? I need to fix this immediately. But a man who understands female psychology and his own worth interprets this completely differently. He thinks, interesting, she's taking space. Let me observe this without emotional attachment and respond strategically rather than reactively. This is where the ancient philosophy of Stoicism becomes your secret weapon. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his Meditations that we cannot control external events, only our responses to them. When you internalize this truth, her ignoring you stops being a crisis and becomes simply a neutral event that you can respond to with wisdom rather than emotion. The Stoics understood something that modern men have forgotten. Your peace of mind is your greatest asset, and anyone who can disturb it has power over you. When she sees that her absence doesn't disturb your peace, something fascinating happens in her psychology. She starts to question her own value in your life, and this questioning creates what psychologists call cognitive dissonance. Let me explain this concept because it's absolutely crucial to understanding why the strategy I'm about to share works so powerfully. Cognitive dissonance occurs when our actions don't align with our beliefs about ourselves. If she believes she's highly desirable and that men should chase her when she pulls away, but you don't chase. Her brain has to reconcile this contradiction. Either she's not as desirable as she thought, which threatens her ego, or you're different from other men in a way that intrigues her. 9 times out of 10, her brain will choose the second interpretation because it's less threatening to her self-image, and suddenly, you've become the mystery she needs to solve. But here's where it gets even more interesting. When you don't chase, you're actually tapping into what evolutionary psychologists call preselection. Throughout human history, women have evolved to be attracted to men who are desired by other women. It's a survival mechanism. If other women want you, you must have value. When you don't desperately pursue her while she's ignoring you, her subconscious assumes it's because you have other options. You're pre-selected by default, even if you're actually just sitting at home working on yourself. This is what David Deida talks about in The Way of the Superior Man. He explains that feminine energy tests masculine energy constantly, not out of malice, but out of a deep need to feel the strength of your presence. When she ignores you, she's testing whether you're solid in yourself or whether you'll crumble without her validation. Now, let's talk about exactly what you should do when she ignores you, because knowledge without action is merely potential power. The first and most important step is to immediately shift your focus from her to yourself. I'm not talking about pretending to focus on yourself while secretly obsessing over her. I'm talking about genuinely redirecting your energy toward your own growth and goals. This isn't just good advice. It's based on solid psychological principles. When you focus on self-improvement during her absence, several powerful things happen simultaneously. First, you activate what psychologists call the Zeigarnik effect. This is the tendency for people to remember and fixate on uncompleted tasks more than completed ones. When you don't chase her, don't send follow-up messages, don't like her photos, you become an uncompleted task in her mind. She expected a certain reaction from you, the typical male desperation she's used to, and when she doesn't get it, her brain keeps returning to you, trying to figure out what happened. You become the mental itch she can't scratch, and this is exactly where you want to be positioned in her psychology. Second, when you genuinely focus on yourself, you enter what Mihaly Csikszentmihalyi calls a flow state. You become absorbed in your own growth, your own projects, your own mission as a man. This isn't just attractive, it's magnetically powerful. Women can sense when a man is fully engaged with his own life versus when he's pretending to be busy while actually waiting for her text. The energy is completely different. One reeks of desperation masked as indifference. The other radiates genuine purpose and direction. This is precisely what Rollo Tomassi discusses in The Rational Male. He introduces the concept of frame, which is essentially the underlying context of your interactions. When she ignores you and you chase, you're operating within her frame. You're playing by her rules, dancing to her rhythm. But when you refuse to chase, when you continue living your life with purpose and passion, regardless of her attention, you maintain your own frame. And here's the key. Humans are naturally drawn to stronger frames. When your frame is stronger than hers, she'll naturally find herself drawn into your reality rather than you being pulled into hers. But let's go deeper into the practical application because I know you're wondering, okay, but what exactly do I do? Do I never text her again? Do I wait a specific amount of time? Here's where we need to understand the concept of strategic absence. Mystery, the pickup artist and author of the Mystery Method, talks about the power of false disqualifiers and tactical withdrawal. When she ignores you, you're going to implement what I call the mirror plus one strategy. If she takes 3 days to respond, you take 4. If she gives you short responses, you give shorter ones. But here's the crucial part. You don't do this from a place of pettiness or revenge. You do it from a place of genuine disinterest in low-investment interactions. You see, when you mirror her energy plus one, you're subcommunicating that you value your attention more than she values hers. This is incredibly powerful because it flips the traditional dynamic where men are expected to pursue relentlessly. But remember, this only works if you're genuinely filling your time with valuable activities. If you're sitting at home staring at your phone waiting to implement the perfect response time, she'll sense that incongruence. Women have evolved incredibly sensitive intuition for detecting genuine versus manufactured disinterest. This brings us to a critical concept that Neil Strauss talks about in The Game: demonstration of higher value. When she ignores you, most men demonstrate lower value by chasing, but you're going to demonstrate higher value by living an amazing life that she's choosing to miss out on. This doesn't mean posting fake photos with other women or trying to make her jealous through social media. That's transparent and weak. Instead, it means genuinely engaging with life in a way that makes her absence irrelevant to your happiness. Start that project you've been putting off. Hit the gym with newfound intensity. Reconnect with friends you've neglected. Read those books that have been gathering dust on your shelf. Learn that skill you've always wanted to master, not for her, but for you. The paradox is that the less you do it for her, the more attractive it becomes to her. This is because authenticity is the ultimate aphrodisiac. When you're genuinely improving yourself for your own satisfaction, you emit an energy that's irresistible. But here's something most dating coaches won't tell you because it's not sexy or marketable. Sometimes her ignoring you is a gift because she's actually not right for you. We get so caught up in the chase, in winning, in proving ourselves, that we forget to ask whether this person actually adds value to our lives. When she ignores you, use that space to honestly evaluate whether you're pursuing her because you genuinely connect with her or because your ego can't handle rejection. Often, we chase people not because we want them, but because we can't stand the idea that they don't want us. This is what Eckhart Tolle calls ego identification in The Power of Now. Your ego, that false sense of self that's built on external validation, cannot tolerate being ignored. It interprets her silence as a threat to your very existence. But your true self, your core being, doesn't need her or anyone else's validation to be complete. When you operate from this place of wholeness rather than neediness, you become incredibly attractive because you're offering genuine connection rather than seeking validation. Now, let's address what's really happening in her mind when you implement these strategies. Women are naturally attracted to men who are somewhat of a challenge. This isn't because they're playing games or because they enjoy drama. It's because challenge creates emotional investment. When everything comes too easily, we don't value it. This is basic human psychology that applies to everything from relationships to achievements. Dan Bacon, in The Flow, explains that women want to feel like they're winning you over, not like you're desperately trying to win them over. When she ignores you and you don't react with typical male desperation, several things happen in her psychology. First, she experiences what's called a pattern interrupt. Her brain expected a certain response based on past experiences with men, and when you don't provide it, she has to consciously engage with the situation rather than running on autopilot. This conscious engagement means she's thinking about you more, not less. Second, she starts to experience what Robert Cialdini calls the scarcity principle in his book Influence. When something becomes less available, we automatically value it more. By not being constantly available, by not flooding her with attention when she pulls away, you become scarce, and scarcity creates desire. This isn't manipulation, it's understanding and aligning with fundamental psychological principles that govern all human behavior. Third, and this is perhaps the most powerful, she begins to question her own behavior. When you don't chase, she has to confront the possibility that maybe she's the one who's losing out. Maybe she's the one who's making a mistake. This self-reflection is incredibly powerful because it shifts the entire dynamic. Instead of you trying to convince her of your value, she's convincing herself that she might be missing out on something valuable. But here's a crucial distinction that separates the men who truly understand this from those who are just playing games. You can't fake genuine disinterest. You can't pretend to be focused on yourself while secretly obsessing over her. Women have an almost supernatural ability to sense incongruence between what you're projecting and what you're actually feeling. This is why inner work is so crucial. You need to actually develop the mindset of abundance, not just pretend to have it. This is where meditation and mindfulness become your secret weapons. When you develop the ability to observe your thoughts and emotions without being controlled by them, you gain incredible power over your reactions. You can feel the urge to text her, acknowledge it without judgment, and then choose not to act on it. This is true emotional mastery, and it's incredibly attractive because it's so rare in today's world of instant gratification and emotional reactivity. Let me share something that Carlos Schuma talks about in his work on dating dynamics. He explains that women are constantly sorting men into two categories: lovers and providers. When you chase her while she's ignoring you, you're subcommunicating that you're in the provider category. You're saying, "I'll give you attention, validation, and resources even when you're not reciprocating." But when you don't chase, When you maintain your own frame and continue living your awesome life, you position yourself in the lover category. You're the challenge, the prize, the man who doesn't need her but might choose her if she proves worthy. Now, I want to address something important because I know some of you are thinking, but what if she never comes back? What if ignoring her back means I lose her forever? First of all, if someone can ignore you indefinitely without missing your presence, they were never yours to lose. You can't lose something you never had. But more importantly, this fear of loss is exactly what keeps you trapped in dynamics where you're always pursuing and never truly valued. The truth that most men can't accept is that you should be willing to walk away from anyone who doesn't enthusiastically want to be in your life. This isn't about pride or ego, it's about self-respect and understanding your own worth. When you're truly willing to walk away, paradoxically, that's when people become most attracted to you. Because walking away communicates ultimate confidence and self-sufficiency. It says, I want you, but I don't need you, which is the most attractive position you can take in any relationship dynamic. This is what Mark Manson talks about in Models when he discusses the importance of polarization. By not chasing when she ignores you, you're polarizing. You're essentially saying, either you're interested enough to invest in this interaction, or you're not, and either way is fine with me. This polarization is powerful because it forces her to make a decision rather than keeping you in limbo as a backup option. But here's the thing about when she does come back, and if you follow what I'm sharing with you, there's a very high probability she will. When she reaches out again, you can't suddenly become desperately available. The same principles that brought her back need to be maintained, or you'll find yourself in the same situation again. This doesn't mean being cold or distant. It means maintaining your standards and your frame. When she texts you after ignoring you for days or weeks, don't respond immediately with enthusiasm. Take your time. Live your life. Respond when it's convenient for you, not the moment her message arrives. And when you do respond, don't bring up her absence. Don't say, finally, you remembered I exist, or I was wondering when you'd text. These responses, even if meant jokingly, communicate that her absence affected you, which diminishes your power in the dynamic. Instead, respond as if no time has passed, but with measured enthusiasm. Be friendly, but not overly eager. Be interested, but not desperate. This communicates that while you're open to connection, your happiness and well-being aren't dependent on her attention. This is what Doc Love calls challenge in his book, The System. He explains that women need challenge to maintain attraction, and the biggest challenge you can present is being a man who's complete within himself. Now, let's talk about the long-term implications of mastering this dynamic. When you learn to maintain your frame when someone ignores you, you're not just improving your dating life. You're developing a core life skill that will serve you in every area. In business, in friendships, in all relationships, the ability to maintain your center when others withdraw their attention or approval is invaluable. You become unshakable, and that kind of emotional stability is magnetic to everyone, not just romantic partners. This is what the Stoics called ataraxia, a state of serene calmness and emotional stability, regardless of external circumstances. When you achieve this state, you become incredibly attractive because you offer something rare in today's chaotic world: stability, peace, and strength. Women, especially high-quality women, are drawn to men who can be their rock in emotional storms. And you can't be someone else's rock if you crumble the moment they withdraw their attention. But I want to be clear about something important. This isn't about becoming emotionally unavailable or playing games for the sake of manipulation. This is about developing genuine self-sufficiency and emotional maturity. The goal isn't to never care about anyone or to be indifferent to connection. The goal is to care from a place of wholeness rather than neediness, to want connection rather than need it for survival. When you reach this level of emotional development, something magical happens. You stop attracting people who play games and ignore you for manipulation. Instead, you start attracting people who match your emotional maturity and availability. The universe, or whatever you want to call it, has a way of bringing you people who match your energy. When you're needy and desperate, you attract people who exploit that neediness. When you're whole and self-sufficient, you attract people who complement that wholeness. This is what Osho talks about when he discusses the difference between relationship and relating. Relationship is a static thing based on need and dependency. Relating is a dynamic flow between two whole individuals who choose to share their completeness. When you don't chase someone who ignores you, you're refusing to enter a relationship based on need and holding out for genuine relating. Now let me address the elephant in the room. Some of you are thinking, but I really like her, I can't just pretend I don't care. And you're right, you shouldn't pretend. But here's the distinction. You can like someone, even really like them, without needing them to validate your existence. You can appreciate someone's presence in your life without falling apart in their absence. This is mature love, and it's far more attractive than desperate infatuation. The key is to channel that energy you would have spent chasing her into becoming the kind of man she would be crazy to ignore. Hit the gym not to post pictures to make her jealous, but to build a body that makes you feel powerful. Read books not to quote them to impress her, but to expand your mind and perspective. Build your business not to show her what she's missing, but to create the life you've always envisioned for yourself. When you do this, when you genuinely focus on becoming the best version of yourself, one of two things happens. Either she recognizes what she's missing and comes back with renewed interest and investment, or she doesn't, and you realize you've outgrown her anyway. Either outcome is a win because you've improved yourself in the process. This is what I call the no-lose strategy. By focusing on yourself when she ignores you, you literally cannot lose. You either get the girl with increased attraction, or you get an improved version of yourself who attracts better options. Let's talk about the specific energy dynamics at play here. David Hawkins, in Power vs. Force, discusses levels of consciousness and energy. When you chase someone who's ignoring you, you're operating from lower energy levels like desire, fear, and grief. These are heavy, dense energies that repel rather than attract. But when you maintain your composure and focus on yourself, you operate from higher energy levels like acceptance, reason, and love. These lighter, more expansive energies naturally draw people toward you. This isn't mystical nonsense. It's observable in everyday interactions. Think about the people you're naturally drawn to. They're usually not the ones desperately seeking your attention. They're the ones who are comfortable in themselves, who seem to have their lives together, who would be happy whether you're there or not. This is the energy you need to embody when she ignores you. But here's a practical tip that's pure gold. Use her absence as an opportunity to date other people. I'm not talking about revenge dating or trying to make her jealous. I'm talking about genuinely exploring your options and reminding yourself that there are billions of women on this planet. When you go on dates with other women while she's ignoring you, several powerful things happen. First, you get perspective. You realize that she's not the only attractive, interesting woman in the world. This abundance mentality is crucial for maintaining your frame. Second, you might actually meet someone who's more compatible, more interested, more invested in building something with you. Third, and this is the kicker, women have an uncanny ability to sense when you have other options. It changes your energy in subtle but powerful ways. You become less available, less needy, more selective, and all of these qualities are incredibly attractive. This is what Ross Jeffries talks about in his speed seduction work. He explains that women are attracted to men who are attracted to them but not impressed by them. When you have other options, you can appreciate a woman's beauty and charm without being overwhelmed by it. You can be attracted without being attached, interested without being invested. This is the sweet spot of attraction. Now, let's discuss the nuclear option, completely removing your attention permanently. Sometimes, and I mean sometimes, the best response to being ignored is to disappear completely. Delete her number, unfollow her on social media, remove all traces of her from your life. This isn't about being petty or hurt. It's about recognizing when someone's behavior is consistently disrespectful and choosing to protect your energy and attention. When you do this, when you completely remove someone from your life who's been taking your attention for granted, it sends a shockwave through their reality. Suddenly, the validation tap they could turn on whenever they wanted is completely shut off. The safety net of your attention is gone. This often triggers what psychologists call an extinction burst, where the ignored behavior dramatically increases in an attempt to regain the lost reinforcement. Don't be surprised if she suddenly starts reaching out through mutual friends, creating fake emergencies, or finding excuses to contact you. This is her ego unable to accept that someone she had wrapped around her finger has completely moved on. But here's the crucial part. If you decide to take the nuclear option, you have to mean it. You can't remove your attention as a manipulation tactic and then come running back the moment she shows interest. That would destroy all the power you've built and put you in an even worse position than before. The truth is, Mastering your response to being ignored is really about mastering yourself. It's about developing such a rich, fulfilling life that no one person's attention or lack thereof can significantly impact your well-being. It's about building multiple pillars of happiness and fulfillment so that if one is temporarily absent, your entire structure doesn't collapse. This is what Jim Rohn meant when he said, "Work harder on yourself than you do on your job." When you invest in yourself, in your growth, in your development, you become increasingly valuable and attractive. People ignore things they don't value, but they can't ignore genuine value for long. By becoming genuinely valuable, not just in the dating marketplace but as a human being, you make it practically impossible for quality people to ignore you. But let's get even more practical. When she does come back, and she likely will if you follow these principles, you need to have standards for re-engagement. Don't just accept breadcrumbs of attention after being ignored. If she texts you "hey" after 2 weeks of silence, that low-effort message deserves a low-priority response, if any at all. You're training her how to treat you, and if you reward low-effort behavior with high enthusiasm, you're training her to continue that pattern. Instead, wait for substantial investment from her side, a real apology, though don't expect one directly, a genuine attempt at meaningful conversation, an actual date proposal from her side, something that shows she recognizes the value of your attention and is willing to invest to regain access to it. This isn't about playing games, it's about maintaining standards and self-respect. Remember what Tony Robbins says, "The quality of your life is the quality of your relationships." But here's what most people miss about that quote. It's not just about the relationships you have, it's about the relationships you refuse to accept. By refusing to accept relationships where you're ignored, disrespected, or treated as an option, you make room for relationships where you're valued, respected, and treated as a priority. This principle extends beyond romantic relationships. When you develop the strength to not chase people who ignore you, you'll find that principle serving you in business, in friendships, in all areas of life. You'll stop chasing clients who don't value your services. You'll stop maintaining friendships with people who only contact you when they need something. You'll stop seeking approval from people whose validation adds nothing to your life. The ultimate truth about what to do when she ignores you is this: nothing and everything. Nothing in terms of chasing her, and everything in terms of building yourself. Use her absence as fuel for your growth. Let her silence be the silence you need to hear your own inner voice calling you to greatness. Transform that emotional energy you would have wasted on chasing into fuel for your personal evolution. When you master this, when you truly internalize these principles, you'll find that people rarely ignore you anymore. Not because you've learned some magic trick, but because you've become the kind of person who's impossible to ignore. You've become valuable, centered, purposeful, and whole. You've become the kind of man who doesn't need to chase because he's too busy being chased by life itself. And here's the final paradox I'll leave you with. The moment you truly don't care whether she comes back or not, that's usually the moment she does. Not because the universe is playing games, but because genuine indifference to outcome is the ultimate display of confidence and self-sufficiency. It's the energy of a man who knows his worth, who's complete within himself, who wants connection but doesn't need it for survival. So the next time she ignores you, instead of seeing it as a crisis, see it as an opportunity. An opportunity to prove to yourself that you're stronger than your neediness. An opportunity to focus on your own growth. An opportunity to demonstrate that your happiness isn't contingent on anyone else's attention. When you master this, you don't just get the girl back, you get something far more valuable. Yourself, fully realized, fully powerful, fully alive. Remember, gentlemen, you're the prize. Act like it, live like it, and never ever chase someone who's choosing to miss out on experiencing your greatness. The right person won't ignore you because they'll recognize your value immediately. And until that person shows up, keep building, keep growing, keep becoming the man who's impossible to ignore. That's not just how you handle being ignored. That's how you build a life that commands attention, respect, and genuine desire. The ball is in your court now. What you do with this knowledge will determine not just your romantic future, but the entire trajectory of your life as a man who refuses to settle for anything less than he deserves.